Okay, so this is the last video. And in this last video, what I would do is, if you still don't understand anything, please send me an email, ask, come before or after school. But this is the last final review that we really have. So let's get into the problems. As you can see, this first one, it's a division of polynomial problems. Because it doesn't have a number in front of the x, I'm going to use synthetic division. So for the synthetic division on this one, first I choose -5 because that's the root of this thing. And then we just go through and we write down the numbers. So 1, 18, 80, 65, and -50. From there, we're going to draw a line. The first number is always dropped down, so we can have a number to take this and multiply right here. So that'd be -5. When we add, that's 13. Then I get, I think, -65. Then I get 15. And then I'm going to double check so I don't mess this up. -75, you get -10, which ends up giving you +50. And that gives you a remainder of 0. Then we have to figure out what to write down. Well, this, since it started out as a 4th degree, will be 1 lower. So that's x to the 3rd. That's 13x squared. That's 15x. And that's -10. And we have a remainder of 0. So it looks like my answer would be A. Let's try the next one. So it wants us to write a polynomial in standard form given the zeros, -1, 3, and 4. So if you have the zeros, what you want to do is write the factors. So the factors that we have would be x plus 1, x minus 3, and x plus 4, or x minus 4. They're always opposite of what the roots are or what the zeros are, so the factors are just always opposite. And then what we would want to do is multiply this out so that we could get it in standard form. So now we're just going to distribute. This will go to here and here, which will give me x squared minus 3x plus 1x minus 3. That would give you x squared minus 2x minus 3. Now we're going to distribute again. So that's going to go there and there. This is going to go here and here. And that's going to go here and here. So let's distribute through one more time. We're going to get x cubed minus 4x squared minus 2x squared plus 8x minus 3x plus 12. Now we're going to combine like terms. So we're going to get x cubed minus 6x squared plus 5x plus 12. And this should be my final answer. Let's see if that's one of my choices. And it is. That would be B. Okay. Just make sure when you're doing this that you change your zeros to factors and then you just multiply through. So this one we're graphing. So the first thing I want to do is I want to find my roots to know which one it is. So we have one root, we have one root which is -1, so it's right there. We have one root at 0, which is there, +1, and 2. So as that would come in, that would be like -2, which that works. This is written the wrong way. 1 minus x is not how we write things, so that one's gone. Okay, let's check the next one if they have our roots. So there's our +1. There's our 0, good. There's our -1, good. And there's our +2, good. So that one has all of them. This one is missing an x. Like it's missing the 0, so that one's not good. And this one has our x, so it might be good. So these two are the same, except for this one doesn't have a negative out in front, and this one does. So we're going to decide right now if this thing starts up or down. So how we're going to do that is we're going to figure out all our signs. So if you plug a negative number and you square it, that becomes a positive. If you plug a negative number and don't do anything to it, it stays negative. If you plug a negative number in here and you don't do anything, that stays negative. If you plug a negative number into here, that doesn't do anything, so it'll stay negative. So then we do this. A positive times a negative is a negative. A negative times a negative is a positive. A positive times a negative is negative. So when you multiply these things out, you get a negative. Well, that means if I get a negative, this thing should have started down. But this thing started up. So it can't be A, it's got to be C. So the big thing on these graphs are find the zeros. It'll probably narrow your choices down. And then after you find the zeros, go through and decide if this thing starts up or down. Let's do the next one. Okay, so what they'd like us to do is sketch the graph for this problem right here. The biggest problem is that we can't necessarily graph it in this form right here. So because it's in that form right there, we need to change it so that we can kind of graph it. So I'm going to write this down, and then we're going to kind of think through it. So that would be negative x cubed minus 3x squared plus 4x. You can see on this that they all share an x, so I'm going to factor out an x, which that would give me, I'm actually going to factor out a negative x since there's a negative in front, which that'd give me negative x squared plus 3x minus 4. And you can then see that this thing would factor into x plus 4 and x minus 1. Because 4 times negative 1 is negative 4, and 4 plus negative 1 is 3. So we need to find the graph that kind of goes through all of these points right here. So when I look at this, I'm going to find out their roots. So their roots for this would be 0, negative 4, and 1. And it looks like my best option for that would be either A or E, because this one kind of goes through negative 4, this one kind of goes through negative 4. It looks like it goes through 0 right there, and then back down through 1 really quickly, and that does the same thing. So we just have to decide if it's A or E based on the starting point. Well, this, if you plug a negative in, and you times it by a negative, or the easier way is to kind of think of it like this. There's a negative, and you plug a negative in. So we get a negative and negative. That'd be negative, and that would be negative. Well, negative times a negative times a negative times a negative. If you multiply all those out, that gives you a positive. So the thing should start up. So E would be my correct answer. Let's do the next one. So now we have this one. I'm actually not going to graph through everything because they all have different zeros, so I'm just going to find what its zero should be. So when I look at this, I can see right here that we have a 0 at 0 because x is just 0. X minus 3, well, that would be positive 3. And x minus 2 would be positive 2. So my zeros are 0, 3, and 2. That would be D. And we can see that the graph does that if you zoom in on it. Okay, let's try the next one. Okay, so we need to graph this point. So you can see that the point is right there. So let's talk about what it is. On the x-axis, it goes positively because it's coming towards us. 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to put 3 for my x. On the y, it goes to the left, so that's negative. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's a negative 4. And on the z, it goes up 1, 2. And that's positive because it's going up. And that's my point. So you just kind of look where everything crosses, and that's how you get your point right there. Let's do the next one. Okay, so for this one, they want all the possible results, and like what is the probability that a spinner will land on an uppercase letter that is not a vowel. So again, here's how you do probability. You do total over your chance of winnings. So our total would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So 10 is going to be on my bottom. And now I want all the uppercase that's not a vowel. So that would be a vowel, so that one's gone. That wouldn't be a vowel, so I'm good. That wouldn't be a vowel, so I'm good. Good, not good. So then we know, when we look at this, that we would have 1, 2, 3 out of 10. So that would be 3 out of 10. Or that would be 30%, or 0.03. And that would be my final answer right there. Let's do the next one. Okay, so let's find the IQR of this box plot. If you remember from before, IQR stands for interquartile range. So IQR is the interquartile range. And because that is the interquartile range, you should know the keyword is range. So because the keyword is range, that's the highest minus the lowest. So this would be your min. This would be your Q1. This would be your Q2. And this would be your Q3. This would be your max. So range is highest highest minus lowest, and since we're talking about quartiles, it'll be our lowest quartile and our highest quartile. So we need these two, which that looks like it's 6 and 3. So 6 minus 3 is 3. And that would be our interquartile range. Let's do the next one. Okay, so we have to find the inverse of this matrix. So finding the inverse of this matrix, first thing I would do is we're going to invert the matrix. So we're going to switch the major axis. So 4 is going to go up here. Negative 5 is going to go down here. We're then going to switch the signs on these. So that's going to be negative 4, and that's going to be 0. Then we need to divide this thing by the determinant. So the determinant we figure out by doing these two multiplied together minus these two. So it'd be negative 5 times 4 minus 4 times 0, which that would give you negative 20. So now we're going to divide all of these things by negative 20, which would give you 4 over negative 20, negative 4 over negative 20, 0 over negative 20, and negative 5 over, negative 5 over negative 20. Those can all simplify to be 1 over 5, or negative 1 over 5, 1 over 5, 0, and 1 over 4. So then when I look, it would be B would be my correct answer. Let's do the next one. Okay, so it says find the product of these two matrices. So basically when we want to do matrix multiplication, I'm going to write these two matrices over here so I just have a little bit more room to multiply. When you think about matrix multiplication, again, we want to do row by column, and you want to get the entire row with that entire column. So we're going to take this row and multiply it right here with this column right here. Everything I circle goes inside a parentheses too. So everything I circle just goes in a parentheses and they match. Like that matches with this one, this matches with that one, and that matches with that one. So we would get 3, negative 9, and 0. And everything that I get, I put inside parentheses. Now we're going to do the next one. So here with here. So that is going to be 0, 3, and negative 15, and those go in parentheses. Now we're going to do the next one. So this is going to go now with this. And that's going to be 9, 0, and 0. And now we're going to do this multiplied by this. And that's going to give us 0, 0, and 25. And so that would give us a final answer of negative 6 minus 12, 9, and 25. which would be D. Okay? So make sure when you're multiplying these that you're multiplying row by column, and that everything that you multiply you're putting in a parenthesis. Let's do the next one. Okay, so we're going to use the discriminant to find the answer to this. First thing you want to do is get this thing in the correct form where it's equaling 0. So to do that we would have 9k squared equals 12k minus 4. I'm going to subtract 12k on both sides and get 9k squared minus 12k equals negative 4. And now I'm going to add 4 to both sides. So I'm going to get 9k squared minus 12k plus 4, and that equals 0. So now we have this. So now that we have this, we're going to think about how we'd figure out how many solutions it has. Well, this I really wouldn't want to factor. I'd probably want to put it in the quadratic formula, but because I need to know how many solutions it has, I don't need to know how many, like what the answers are. So the only thing I really care about is that square root part going to break down, which means it would have a negative number? Is it going to be 0, which would positive and negative would be the same, or is it going to be positive, so it would have two answers? So we're just going to plug in that portion, which b squared would be 12 squared, which is 144, minus 4ac. Well, that would be 9 times 4 times 4. Well, 9 times 4 times 4 is 144. 144 minus 144 is 0. 0. A positive 0 is the same thing as a positive 0, and a negative 0 is the same thing as a negative 0. So our answer would be 1 real rational solution, because 0 is our answer, and 0 being positive is the same as 0 being negative. Let's do the next one. We want to know, is x plus 4 a factor of this? Well, how we could check is we can use synthetic division. So again, what I would do with the synthetic division is I'd put negative 4, because that's its root, in there. And we have 8, 33, negative 4, 1, and 4. We always carry the first number down. So that'd give us 8. So that'd be negative 32. We add them together, we get 1. Multiply. So I get negative 4. Add them together, I get 8. Or negative 8. Just going to double check all my math to make sure everything has gone right so far. So 8, negative 32, 1, negative 4, yep, negative 8. That then would be a positive 32, which would give me 33. And that's going to be a really big negative number when I multiply this out, which would be negative 132. You add it with 4, you get negative 128, which means this thing has a remainder, so it is not a factor.